Sir, what is your role at the State Police Crime Lab?
I'm currently a Forensic Scientist 2, assigned to the Criminalistics Unit, where I perform lab work for biological analysis on evidence submitted to the laboratory. And I'm a Forensic Scientist 2 in the Crime Scene Response Unit, and I respond to crime scenes when called upon to assist with investigations.
How long have you been with the Crime Lab?
I've been with the Crime Laboratory for a little over 10 years.
And can you give us your educational background?
Yes, I have a Bachelor of Science degree from West Virginia University with a major of Forensic and Investigative Science and a minor in Biology.
And can you detail your history with the Crime Lab for us?
I first started working at the Crime Laboratory in 2015 with the CODIS Collection and Investigative Unit. I was a lab technician. I was at that position for approximately a year and a half until a position opened up in the Criminalistics Unit, where I joined as a Forensic Scientist 1. There was about a 1-year-long training period where I went through various modules of training, and upon that completion, I was then promoted to Forensic Scientist 2, which is when I began working on cases.
And you said the CODIS Unit. What is that, sir?
The CODIS Unit is a unit at the State Police Crime Laboratory responsible for collecting DNA standards from individuals who are required by Massachusetts general law to supply standards to the state database.
Now, sir, you've said I think you kind of briefly told us that you work for 2 units and the difference, but if you could just help us figure this out. What's the difference between the Criminalistics Unit and the Crime Scene Response Unit?
Sure. So the Criminalistics Unit exclusively works in the laboratory. We get cases assigned to us by supervisors, and we then perform the necessary biological analysis on those cases based on the information provided to us. The Crime Scene Response Unit, everyone in the Criminalistics Unit is also in the Crime Scene Response Unit. That unit performs the same biological analysis and trace collections as well. However, we respond to the physical crime scenes when called upon to collect evidence, to perform testing, and then write reports.
Are you familiar with competency tests?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell us what competency tests are?
A competency test is a final test that is conducted at the end of training. In the Criminalistics Unit, I went through a training period where there were separate modules, where each module is a particular discipline of forensic science. So blood testing, other bodily fluids, trace analysis, et cetera. And then upon completing each of those modules, there is a final exam at the end called a competency test, of which I passed prior to working on any cases at the laboratory.
So I think you might have answered my question, but you passed your competency tests?
Yes, I did.
Now, are you familiar with what's a proficiency test?
I am, yes.
Can you tell us what a proficiency test is opposed to a competency test?
The main difference is that a proficiency test is performed periodically in each discipline. So, for example, each year I take 2 proficiency tests in the biological screening field. I take 1 trace proficiency test as well, and that's administered through an exterior company that will send us a test to perform, and I'll perform the necessary test in that discipline and then write a report on my findings.
And sir, have you ever testified giving your opinion concerning evidence collection or analysis or forensic analysis of evidence?
Yes, I have.
In the crime lab, is it accredited?
Yes, it is.
What does it mean to be an accredited crime lab?
Accreditation is a voluntary process that the laboratory goes through. An outside agency looks at the standards and procedures that we follow, and which are guidelines set by the greater scientific community and forensic community. There is a certificate that is given every 5 years that reasserts that we're accredited and adhering to the standards set forth by that agency.
I would like to ask some questions about January 9th, 2023. Were you working that day?
Yes, I was.
And at about 2:35 that afternoon, where did you report to?
I reported to the Cohasset Police Department at approximately 2:35.
And why were you at the Cohasset Police Department?
I was requested to process a vehicle involved in an incident in Cohasset.
And was anyone else with you to process this vehicle?
Yes, there was.
Who?
I had a trainee with me at the time from the laboratory. He was going through the training period to become a crime scene responder. There were also members of the crime scene services section to take photographs, as well as members of the State Police Detective Unit.
Your Honor, I'm at this point in my examination, as I start questioning Mr. Gould, I'm going to be referring to a series of pre-marked exhibits that are photographs, starting at number 100 going to 128.
When you say they're pre-marked, are they pre-marked and agreed to by the other side?
Correct, Your Honor.
All right. So when you offer them, identify what they are so there's a complete record of them. but at this time, they'll be moved into evidence 100 through 128.
Thank you, Your Honor. And, sir, I might have neglected to ask, did you pass those proficiency tests?
I've passed every proficiency test to date so far.
So, returning your attention back to January 9th, at approximately 2:30 p.m. at the Cohasset Police Station in 2023. Ms. Gilman, can we have what's been pre-marked as Exhibit 100, file number 4239, published?
Okay, while they get that published, we are going to squeeze in a break. We're going to have more of the Brian Walshe murder trial when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Court TV Live. It is day 3 of testimony in the murder trial for Brian Walshe. That's taking place in Massachusetts. Walshe is charged with murder in the disappearance of his wife, Anna. Her body has never been found. Last month, Walshe pleaded guilty to misleading police and improper disposal of a body. But he says he did not kill her. Let's go back now inside that courtroom. We are listening to a DNA analyst, and he's been going over what investigators found in Brian Walshe's car.
Sir, do you recognize this photograph?
Yes, I do.
What is this a photograph of?
This is a photograph of the Volvo I examined on January 9th.
And where is it located, sir?
It's located at the Cohasset Police Department inside their garage.
Ms. Gilman, can we now have Exhibit 101, file number 4250? Sir, what is this a photograph of?
This is a photograph of the front of the same Volvo that I examined.
Now, how did you conduct an examination of the Volvo that day?
Initially, I did a sketch and diagram as well as take some notes based on the vehicle prior to any analysis. So what it looked like from the exterior before I went inside of it and before I started performing any sort of biological testing. I then gathered information from the investigators on scene that were pertinent to the case so that I could determine what forensic linkages I needed to be looking for, and then proceeded with those biological screening tests at that point.
What was the overall condition of the exterior of the vehicle?
Overall, the exterior was very clean. There was an apparent hair noted in the front passenger exterior door handle.
And what was the overall condition of the interior of the vehicle?
The interior was overall very clean with miscellaneous items throughout most of the vehicle.
Ms. Gilman, can we now have Exhibit 102, which is file number 4275? Sir, do you recognize this photograph?
Yes, I do.
What did you see in the vehicle as far as child safety seats?
There were 2 child safety seats, one located in the second row on the passenger side and another seat located in the third row on the driver's side.
Now, sir, what did you observe as far as any staining inside the vehicle?
There were 2 areas of visible staining that I noted, one being a red-brown stain on the front driver's side visor, and then there was brown stains noted on the front passenger side visor.
Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit 103, which is file number 4283? Sir, directing your attention to the screen, what is it that we're looking at?
This is a photograph of the stain, the red-brown stain on the driver's side visor that I had marked with a ruler and the letter A.
And so you're the person who would put that piece of tape there?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit 104, which is file 4286? What is it that we're looking at here, sir?
Similarly, this is a photograph of the brown stains on the front passenger visor that I marked B with the ruler tape.
Now, what did you find as far as gloves on the passenger side of the car?
On the passenger side of the vehicle, on the floor, there were 2 examination-style gloves. In the front passenger door pocket, there were 2 additional exam-style gloves in a Ziploc bag. And in the center console, there was 16 exam-style gloves inside of the center console.
Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit 105, which is file number 4279? Sir, did you see this photograph?
Yes, I do.
Can you show us where you found gloves on the passenger side?
Yes, so on the right-hand side of the photograph on the floor, there are the light blue-colored gloves. Those would be the 2 gloves that I observed on the floor.
And Ms. Gilman, can we now have Exhibit 106, which is file number 4258? Sir, do you recognize this image?
Yes, I do.
And what is this an image of?
This is the open center console between the front driver and passenger seats with 16 examination-style gloves inside of it.
With the Volvo that afternoon, what were you able to do as far as any testing?
The testing I performed on the Volvo was the blood screening test we use at the laboratory. It is a color-changing test involving 2 chemicals. I'll take a clean swab and apply it to any areas that I'm interested in determining if there is potential blood present. It is a screening test, so it does not confirm the presence of blood. Additional testing would be needed, but the color test allows us to visualize stains that we can't see. So I applied this test throughout multiple areas inside the vehicle, looking for blood that was not visible to the naked eye. When it's negative, the swabs don't change any color after I add the chemicals. If it's positive, it will turn a pinkish violet sort of color after the addition of the chemicals. And prior to performing all of those tests, I made sure that my chemicals were working by using a positive and negative control on those chemicals.
And can you tell us what items might trigger a positive that are not human blood?
Yes, so there are vegetables such as cauliflower that have a peroxidase reaction, which is the main reaction in our blood screening test. So that is the main sort of reaction we're looking for. So occasionally those vegetables or legumes such as beans, those are examples of items that can have that positive reaction as well that are not blood.
Now, with this test, were there any areas that tested positive?
Yes, there were.
What areas of the Volvo tested positive?
Of all the areas I examined, there were 5 that tested positive for blood screening. 1 was the front driver side seat controls for the front seat. There was an area on the second row passenger floor mat that tested positive. The third row passenger seat was folded down, and the back side of that screened positive for the presence of blood. And 2 additional areas on the mat that was in the trunk that was covering the trunk storage space. There was 2 mats, 1 area on each of them, test screened positive for the presence of blood. And these were areas that I did not observe any visible staining.
And, sir, how many areas do you think you tested overall in the Volvo?
Overall, I would estimate approximately 40 to 50. I covered a lot of the contact areas, so steering wheels, door controls, the radio controls, handles, door pulls, the floor mats, the brake pedals, and many areas inside of the vehicle.
And so, did you have the opportunity to take any samples from the car?
Yes, I did.
And so, what did you take as far as samples from the Volvo that day?
From the Volvo, I collected the hair I previously mentioned, or the apparent hair that I mentioned from the exterior front passenger door handle. And then each of those 5 areas that screened positive for the presence of blood, I took samples from each of those individually for further testing back at the laboratory.
So, can you walk us through how do you take those samples? Like, how do you package them up? How does that work?
So the samples are collected with a set of swabs. I'll use a drop or 2 of clean water and apply it to the swabs. And then I'll take those swabs and go over those areas that screen positive to collect any sample that might be there. And then I'll put each of those samples into a glassine envelope, which then goes into a coin envelope that I'll transport back to the laboratory to be sealed and then stored properly for a further analysis.
How long do you think it took to examine the Volvo and collect the samples?
I would estimate it took me roughly 3.5 to 4 hours.
And after collecting the swabs, did you go back to the crime lab?
No, I did not.
Where did you go to next?
While I was examining the vehicle, I was requested to respond to 300 Forest Street in Peabody, Massachusetts.
Well, what time do you think you got to 300 Forest Street?
I arrived there approximately 8:15 p.m.
And can you describe what 300 Forest Street in Peabody is?
300 Forest Street is a recycle and trash collection center located just off of Route 1.
And what did you see when you got to 300 Forest Street?
Mainly there was a large area where trash had been collected for from various neighborhoods and areas, and there was a certain section of trash that had been separated from the larger piles that were there.
Ms. Gilman, can we have...
We're going to go ahead and bring in trial attorney Alexis Rosenberg to talk about what we've been listening to with the DNA analyst on the stand. We are hearing about all the areas where they found the presence of blood. Alexis, what do you think about the testimony so far?
Well, it's not looking good for the husband, is it? I mean, there could be an explanation that they were married, but the amount of blood that they're talking about in various areas, as well as all these gloves and everything everywhere, it's not looking good for him at all.
No, it's definitely not. We'll have to see what defense counsel comes up with on the cross-examination. But yeah, just getting into the direct, we're gonna hear him a long time on the stand, Mr. Gould, and then eventually cross. So stick around with us, Alexis. We'll come back and get more insight from you. In the meantime, we're gonna squeeze in a break. More of the Brian Walshe murder trial in Massachusetts up next.
Disappearance of Anna Walshe.
Her husband now charged with her murder.
All eyes on this accused killer.
The disappearance of Anna Walshe murder trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Tonight on closing arguments, he admitted to lying to police, but will this jury believe he murdered his wife? We're unpacking key testimony in the case against Brian Walshe.
Closing arguments tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Come.
Now back to the disappearance of Anna Walshe murder trial that's taking place in Massachusetts. Her husband, Brian Walshe, is accused of killing and dismembering her around New Year's Day 2023. Walshe has admitted to lying to investigators and disposing of her body. But he says he did not kill her, that she died unexpectedly. Still on the stand, the DNA analyst who examined the defendant's car. Let's go back in.
Ms. Gilman, can we have what's been marked as Exhibit 107, HAS 6556? Sir, do you recognize this image?
Yes, I do.
What is this an image of?
This is the entrance to the Recycle and Trash Collection Center, showing the mounds of garbage that are there.
And Ms. Gilman, can we have HAS 6564, what's been previously marked as Exhibit 108? And do you see this image, sir?
Yes, I do.
What is this an image of?
This is a continuation of the interior of the center.
And so the trash that you had the opportunity to see people going through, I'm going to direct your attention to what's been marked as Exhibit 109. Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit 109, 6566? Was this mixed in with all the other stuff that we just saw, or is this somewhere else?
I'm unsure. This photo was taken prior to my arrival at the collection site.
Okay. But what is this a picture of?
This is a picture of a separated portion of the garbage in the center.
Now, what did you see? What did you see as far as people searching or going through the trash that night?
By the time I arrived, the main search had already been done, and there was bags of trash that were beginning to be emptied and inventoried by Crime Scene Services section and the detective unit that was there.
And so what was your role as far as dealing with these bags of trash that other officers were going through?
My main role was to assist with the other units that were present and to sift through the items in those bags to determine what items would be relevant for forensic analysis, and then which units would be responsible for taking those items back to the laboratory afterward.
And so what was the first thing that was done when a bag was opened, if there was some kind of evidentiary analysis that needed to be done on it?
The first thing that I did while the trash was being emptied was I had my notes where I noted the items that were coming out of the bags, and then I worked with the Crime Scene Services section trooper there as well, who photographed those items as they were coming out of the bag as well.
And how many different bags of, is it fair to say that you numbered the bags that you found to have some kind of value to you that night?
The Crime Scene Services section did use placards to denote the bags that they were removing and photographing.
All right. Ms. Gilman, can I ask that you publish what's previously been marked as Exhibit 51, file number 6810? Sir, do you recognize this image?
Yes, I do.
All right, so what's happening in this image that night when you were at 300 Forest Street?
This is the contents of one of the trash bags that was separated at the center.
And Ms. Gilman, can you now show us Exhibit 52, file number 6867? So now what are we looking at in relation to that last image, sir?
Since that last photograph was taken, bench paper was put out onto the floor of the collection center in order to preserve the integrity of the evidence that we were collecting at that point.
And so if it went onto a piece of paper like this, was it going to be collected?
Potentially, yes.
And this bag, sir, that we see on the screen for Exhibit 52, did you have the opportunity to know what was inside this bag, bag 1?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us what was discovered inside of bag 1?
Inside of bag 1 was a pair of green boots, a black jacket with red-brown stains, and a bracelet inside of the pocket. There was a black purse with red-brown stains, a black wallet, and a pair of headphones inside of a case, as well as a pair of socks.
Was anything discovered as far as car keys?
Yes, there was a pair of Volkswagen keys as well.
Ms. Gilman, can we have what's been marked as Exhibit 110, file number 6869? Is this also the contents of that first bag?
That's correct.
And Ms. Gilman, can we now have Exhibit 111, which has been marked as 6870? Are these also the contents of that bag?
Yes.
Now, I'd like to ask you about another bag that you or had the opportunity to examine. Was there a trash bag with the designation 2?
Yes, there was.
What was discovered inside of bag 2?
Inside of bag 2 were 2 white towels with red-brown stains, as well as a piece of tape with apparent gauze and red-brown stains inside of it.
Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit 112, which is file number 6898? Sir, is that one of the towels that was found inside of bag 2?
Yes, it is.
And Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit 113, file number 6902? Is that the second towel that was found inside the bag, sir?
Correct.
And what's the other items around the towel?
Those are miscellaneous tissues with red-brown stains.
Now, was there a bag 3?
Yes, there was.
What was discovered inside of bag 3?
Inside of bag 3 was a white bathrobe with red-brown stains.
Ms. Gilman, can we have what's been marked as Exhibit 114, file number 6906? Sir, is this a picture of what was found, the bathrobe and found inside of bag 3?
Yes, it is.
Now, was there a bag 4?
There was.
What was discovered inside of bag 4?
Inside of bag 4 was a pair of gray slippers with red-brown stains, a pair of dark gray slippers with red-brown stains and trace materials, as well as apparent hairs with red-brown stains.
So, Ms. Gilman, if we could have Exhibit 115, file number 6915. Sir, do you recognize this image?
Yes, I do.
Directing your attention to this image, the slippers there, which ones are those in the top of it?
The slippers located at the top are the gray slippers.
And at the bottom, what is there next to the left of the jar?
There is a leather strap wristwatch located as well.
And you had said that there was a second pair of slippers that was recovered from that bag?
That's correct.
Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit 116, file number 6929? Sir, can you tell us where the second pair of slippers is in this photo?
Yes, at the bottom center of the photo, you'll see the dark gray slippers with the red-brown stains and trace material noted on the bottom of one of the slippers.
What is trace material?
Trace material could reference a number of things. In this particular instance, it references the apparent hairs or fibers that I observed on the slippers.
Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit 117, file number 6934? Sir, what is the trace material you saw that night when you were at 300 Forest Street?
In the photo on the right-hand side of the overturned slipper, there are the apparent hairs and fibers that I call trace materials located on the right-hand side at the toe end of the slipper.
Sir, I'd like to ask you some questions about bag number 5. What did you observe inside of what did you observe produced from bag 5?
Bag number 5 contained pieces of rug with red-brown stains on some of the pieces.
Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit 118, which is file number 6948? Sir, what are we looking at here?
These are pieces of a rug with red-brown stains that I noted on 2 of the pieces.
And Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit 119, file number 6944? Sir, where did you see the red-brown staining on the rugs?
On the 2 leftmost pieces, the left piece has red-brown stains in the bottom right corner, and then the one in the center of the photo has red-brown stains on the majority of the piece of rug.
So, sir, after bag 5, did you have the opportunity to see anything produced from a 6th bag?
I did, yes.
What was produced from the 6th bag?
Inside the sixth bag was additional pieces of rug with red-brown staining on those as well.
And besides red-brown staining from of rug, what was discovered as far as a Tyvek suit?
There was a white Tyvek suit discovered in the bag as well, along with a wrapper for a Tyvek suit.
Was anything else discovered as far as a...
Wow, a lot of blood. You have a defendant here who has admitted to dismembering his wife. Continue to listen to the DNA analyst on the stand. Goodbye to Alexis Rosenberg. Coming up, more of the Brian Walshe murder trial in Massachusetts. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott, honored to be with you today. Our Court TV cameras are in Massachusetts, where defendant Brian Walshe is standing trial. He is accused of killing his wife, Anna. Prosecutors believe she was murdered on New Year's Day back in 2023. They say Walshe spent several days trying to conceal her death before she was ultimately reported missing by her employer. Her body has never been found. Walshe did plead guilty to disposing Anna's body and misleading police. He did not, however, admit to her murder. He instead claims that Anna died a sudden death. On the stand right now is the DNA analyst who is going through photos of bloody evidence found in trash bags. Let's get you back in for more.
Was anything else discovered as far as a safety goggles or anything like that?
Yes, safety goggles were discovered, as well as additional miscellaneous items.
Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit 120, which is file number 6951? Sir, do you recognize this image?
Yes, I do.
What is this an image of?
This is an image of the safety goggles and Tyvek suit wrappers that were found in bag number 6.
Can you tell us what a Tyvek suit is?
A Tyvek suit is typically a piece of personal protective equipment that one would wear in order to protect themselves from anything they might be working with.
Have you ever worn one?
I have, yes.
When would you wear one?
I have worn one specifically during training sessions where there are biological fluids that we are experimenting with.
Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit 121, which is file number 6956? Sir, do you recognize this image?
I do, yes.
What is this an image of?
This is an image showing more of the pieces of the rug.
And Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit number 122, file number 6952? What are we looking at here, sir?
This is a photograph of the lower half of the Tyvek suit from bag number 6.
Did you have the opportunity to see the contents of a 7th bag that night?
Yes, I did.
What was inside the 7th? What was produced from the 7th bag?
Your Honor, may I refer to my notes?
May.
The seventh bag contained a bottle of hydrogen peroxide, a ice pack, a blue flat sheet as well.
And sir, I neglected to ask you about the rug as well. I showed you one image, which was Exhibit 121. So, Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit 123, file number 6963? Sir, what is this we're looking at?
This is another piece of the rug from bag number 6 containing red-brown stains with apparent tissue.
And what is apparent tissue? For those of, like, I don't know what that means. It's not like Kleenexes, right?
That's correct. Apparent tissue from the forensic perspective is a material that may or may not resemble human skin tissue. In this particular instance, based on my observations, that's what I called it.
Ms. Gilman, if you could take that down, and if we could have Exhibit 124, 6974. And so, sir, does this represent the contents of the seventh bag?
Yes, it does.
And so, in the upper center, what is that brown bottle?
It is a bottle of hydrogen peroxide.
And the cut up like labels off to the side, did you note what those were for?
I didn't note what they specifically were for. I grouped them under the miscellaneous items that were in this bag.
And now, sir, did you have the opportunity to see an eighth bag in the contents produced from it?
Yes, I did.
Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit 125, which is HAS 7002? Sir, what is it that we're looking at here?
This is a photograph of the contents of bag number 8.
And what was produced from bag number 8?
Bag number 8 contained a hammer, a pair of wire snips, a hatchet, and a hacksaw with red-brown stains on it.
And what are wire snips, and then what are shears?
They're sharpened tools that can be used to cut an item of interest.
So which one of those two objects is snips and which one is a shear?
The shears are located on the right-hand side of the photo. The snips are located in the center between the hacksaw and the hatchet.
Now, sir, I want to ask you about bag 10. Skip it. What was recovered from the 10th bag?
The 10th bag contained a large piece of tarp that was taped together, so multiple pieces were taped together to form a larger tarp.
Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit 126? Is this what the 10th bag looked like, sir?
Prior to opening the contents, yes.
And Ms. Gilman, can we have Exhibit 127? What is it we're looking at here in 127, sir?
This is a photograph of protective booties that are worn over the bottoms of shoes.
And where were those recovered from, sir?
Those were also recovered in bag 10 once the contents were emptied.
And Ms. Gilman, can we have what's been previously marked as Exhibit 50, file number 7029? What is this, sir?
This is a photograph of the tarp from bag number 10 as it was being unfurled from the bag.
And Ms. Gilman, can we now have Exhibit 128, file number 7035? What is this image of, sir?
This is an image of additional items from bag number 10, one of them being an apparent piece of insulation and then some scraps from containers.
So, sir, what was done with all of these items?
The items that were taken out of all the bags, we discussed amongst the crime scene services section, detective unit, and myself, which items would be going to which units first for analysis. Items of evidence that would be going straight to the criminalistics unit for analysis, I would be collecting. Items that would be analyzed for potential prints would be going with the crime scene services section, and state police detective unit would be responsible for the remaining items.
So, what items, well, At this point in time, I'd like to ask you something, sir. Are you familiar with what's called the LIMS system for the crime lab?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell us what the LIMS system is?
LIMS stands for the Laboratory Information Management System. It is a software program that we utilize in order to track items of evidence that have been submitted to the laboratory and then their chain of custody history as they move throughout the laboratory.
And so after you had the opportunity to collect items that night, where did you go?
At that point, I left the facility and went to the laboratory in Danvers and submitted items of evidence there under lab number 23-00596.
So that number, that's for the overall case that you're assigned to at this point in time, right?
That's correct.
So what happens as far as when you make a submission of a piece of evidence into the LIMS system?
Once the evidence has been submitted into the Laboratory Information Management System, I then make assignments for myself to write a report based on what I collected from that scene, as well as assignments for the criminalistics unit for any items that need to be analyzed in the criminalistics unit as well. Every item is then appropriately packaged and or dried if it's wet, and then eventually transported to the appropriate storage facility.
And so I'd like to ask you about some of the LIMS numbers that you were able to assign objects that you entered into the evidence. Your Honor, if it may be with the court's approval and with no objection from defense, would he be able to refer to his report during this portion?
Any objection?
No objection.
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Sir, what item number under LIMS did the swabs from the driver's seat controls get?
Those swabs were given item number 9-1, 9 referring to the submission and 1 being the first item under that submission.
And what item number did the swabs from the rear passenger seat floor mat get?
The rear passenger side floor mat was given 9-2.
What LIMS number did the swabs from the rear passenger third row seat get?
9-3.
What was the LIMS number for the swabs from trunk mat 1?
Trunk mat 1 was 9-4.
What was the LIMS number for the swabs from trunk mat 2?
9-5.
Perhaps this is part of the reason that Brian Walshe admitted to dismembering his wife's deceased body, because of all of this evidence and the blood found on each item. Stay tuned. We're going to bring you more of this testimony in the Brian Walshe murder trial up next.
The disappearance of mother Anna Walshe.
Her husband now charged with her murder.
All eyes on this accused killer.
Mr. Walshe was suspecting his wife of having an affair.
The massive trail of evidence.
This incredible timeline of Google searches.
It shows everything that was in his mind.
He searched how long before a body starts to smell.
The disappearance of Anna Walshe murder trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Now back to Dedham, Massachusetts, where we are watching the trial against Brian Walshe. He is charged with murder in the presumed death of his wife, Anna, who went missing back in 2023. Still on the stand is the DNA analyst testifying about multitudes of pieces of evidence collected from trash bags. Let's go back into court for more.
What was the item number for the swabs from the red-brown stain with the letter A?
9-6.
What was the item number for the hair sample you got from the door of the Volvo?
9-7.
What was the LIMS number for the swabs for the gloves? I'm sorry, what was the LIMS number for the gloves from the floor?
From the front passenger floor, it was 9-8.
And what was the LIMS number for the Ziploc bag in the passenger door pocket?
9-9.
And what was the LIMS number for the gloves in the center console?
9-10.
Now, did you seize any Band-Aids from the floor of that vehicle?
I seized 2 Band-Aids from the center console of the vehicle, yes.
And what LIMS number did they get?
Those were given item 9-11.
Now, directing your attention to the items from 300 Forest Street, What was the limbs number for the black jacket from bag number 1?
9-12.
And what was the limbs number for the bracelet from the left pocket of that jacket?
9-13.
What was the limbs number for the black purse in bag 1?
9-14.
And what was the number for the black wallet from bag 1?
9-15.
What number did the pair of boots get from bag 1?
9-16.
What item number did the Volkswagen keys get?
9-17.
And what limbs number did the headphones, did you find headphones that night?
There were headphones inside of a case, yes.
And what number did they get?
They were 9-18.
What item number did referring to bag 2, what did you discover as far as any gauze?
Inside of bag 2 was a piece of tape that had gauze inside of the tape. So the non-adhesive side was on the exterior, and then the gauze was on the interior of that tape, and the gauze appeared to be red-brown stained.
And what was the item number that you gave to the tape with the gauze and the red-brown stain?
9-20.
And regarding the wipes that you found from bag 2, what was the item number they got?
They were 9-21.
And the towels that were retrieved from bag 2, what numbers did they get?
The white towel, one of them was 9-22, and the other was 9-23.
What about the bathrobe from bag 3? What limbs number did that get?
The white bathrobe with red-brown stains was 9-24.
And the watch that was in bag 4?
9-25.
Sir, what about the gray slippers with red-brown stains from bag 4? What limbs number did they get?
Gray slippers were 9-26.
And then there was a second pair of slippers. Were they the dark gray slippers?
That's correct.
All right, so what did the dark gray slippers with trace material get as a limbs number?
9-27.
And was there any hair samples recovered from bag 4?
Yes, there was.
What was recovered as far as a hair sample?
There was apparent hairs with red-brown stains that were not on the slippers. They were just loose inside of the bag. I collected those as well.
And what item number did they get?
They were given 9-28.
And any wipes recovered from bag 4?
Yes, correct.
And what did they get for an item number?
9-29.
And in the images from that bag, was there a sponge?
There was, yes, a sponge with a wipe stuffed into it.
And what item number did that get?
That was given number 9-30.
And was anything retrieved as far as cuttings, or I shouldn't say that, what was the item number given to the pieces of rug from bag 5?
From bag number 5, I took a cutting myself from the red-brown stains that were seen on those pieces of rug. That cutting was given 9-31.
What item number did the Tyvek suit get?
9-32.
And in bag 6, what number did the hand towel get?
9-33.
So, sir, now I'd like to show you some of these objects. And before I do you have any gloves with you?
I do, yes.
Can I see counsel at the side of the bench?
Yes, Your Honor.
A perfect time to bring in former Deputy Public Defender Philip Dubé. Philip, of course, thank you for being on with me. Listen, how do you think this is shaping up in terms of trying to prove that Brian Walshe murdered Anna? We know that he pled and he said that he dismembered her body, and this evidence is all the different things found in different bags with what appears to be brownish stains that may be blood. We'll have to wait for that evidence. What do you think?
I think he's finished as a practical matter. I really do. His problem is that the Google searches show a glimpse into his mindset, into exactly what was going through his head at the time. Obviously, they have to prove an intent to kill, and we cannot read people's minds, so we have to look to behavioral clues. What did they do? What did they say? And certainly we look to their Google searches to kind of get a snapshot into what was going through their head at the time. And the jury is permitted to make inferences from that without actually saying, if you kill somebody, how long does it take for the remains to start decomposing, that type of thing. The jury can use its common sense and connect the dots to say that this absolutely was his inner thinking without actually articulating the word intent. And the United States Supreme Court has held, by the way, all the way back out of Georgia, I think it was in 1929, Manley versus Georgia, that we do not have mandatory presumptions in criminal law. In other words, juries cannot be instructed that they must conclusively presume an intent to kill based on these types of search terms and everything else that he did. Instead, the jury can make permissive inferences from the evidence. Otherwise, you're relieving the prosecution of its duty of proving each element beyond a reasonable doubt. And so far from where I'm sitting, there's just no way out for him. And I understand his counsel's doing the job that they need to do, and they're doing the old soft shoe in front of the jury. But in the end, I just don't think there's any way out of this.
Well, let's talk about the victims, because in this case, Anna's body has never been found. In court is Anna's mother. She's been there observing, watching, listening to this same testimony. We may have a photo of her that we can show. And there is Anna's mother. Wow, they're striking in terms of the resemblance to one another. So what must it be like, Philip, to be looking at the back of the man at the defense table that says, oh, sudden death, and I cut up her body, and yes, I misled police, but I didn't kill her, and then hearing this evidence that you've said you think kind of seals the deal that he murdered her?
Well, to be quite honest with you, I think this is more of a replay for her. If I'm not mistaken, they already got a presumption in the probate court of her death, and that required a hearing of evidence to show that there's no way that she could possibly be alive. And I think the reason why they had to go into court for that purpose was to make arrangements for the 3 children. And if mom is gone and he's looking at life in prison, there's nobody to care for these kids other than the foster care system, then parents, grandparents, and other next of kin have standing to go into probate court for that finding. And that finding, I believe, is only by clear and convincing evidence that a death has occurred, but it certainly falls short of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. But my point is that she has already heard these ghoulish, gruesome details. So I'm not going to say she's impervious to it, and it's still like putting salt on the wound, but she has heard it all before.
Yeah, and we are listening along to this testimony, edge of our seats. We are going to take a break. When we come back, more of the Brian Walshe murder trial up next.
Hey.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott. Let's turn now back to the disappearance of Anna Walshe murder trial in the state of Massachusetts. Her husband, Brian Walshe, is accused of killing her and hiding her body in January of 2023. Now, last month, Walshe, pleaded guilty to misleading the police and improper disposal of a body. But he says he did not kill Anna and that she died unexpectedly. Let's get you back inside the courtroom. Still on the stand is a DNA analyst going over all the evidence he found in Walsh's car and trash. Direct examination by the Commonwealth.
Sir, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand you an item that's in a bag. I'm going to ask if you recognize the bag and open it up. I'm not going to ask you to produce anything from the bag, okay?
Yep.
All right, thank you, sir. So the first item I'm handing you is a manila envelope. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
What is it, sir?
This is a manila envelope containing the COVID card of Anna Walshe that I recovered from the scene.
Can you open that envelope and determine if that object is inside of it?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. The Commonwealth would seek to have this envelope marked as the next exhibit, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
Is it 129 we're at?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
The COVID card will be, or the exhibit with pouch that contains the COVID card is now in evidence as 129. Jurors, I do expect that there's going to be a series, and based on what we're consulting with at the side of the bench, there's going to be a series of bags of evidence that the Commonwealth's going to move in to evidence. And those bags, to the extent that they are admitted as evidence, will go back with you in the jury room for you to examine as you need during your deliberations. But it's my understanding that they're going to stay in the bags right now. And when they go back with you, you'll have proper gloves, just like the witness now has. All right? Thank you.
Sir, do you recognize this bag?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
This is the bag of keys and headphones that I recovered at the scene.
Could you open it and confirm those items are inside that bag?
Yes, they are.
The Commonwealth would seek to have the bag with the keys and headphones marked as the next exhibit, Your Honor, which I believe is 130.
Any objection?
No objection.
It's marked and admitted into evidence as Exhibit 130, the Volvo keys and the headphones.
Oh, my bad. Sir, I'm showing you I'm producing a bag to you. If you could tell us if you recognize it.
Yes, this is a bag of the black jacket with red-brown stains, a pair of socks and bracelet from bag number 1 at the collection site in Peabody.
Could you open that up and confirm that those items are inside of it?
I can see the black jacket. However, without removing it, there's nothing I can see that might be underneath it.
Okay. So for today's purposes, that bag with the black jacket, I would seek to mark as the next exhibit, Your Honor, without having to move the jacket around and go underneath any objects inside it.
What's the outside labeling say? Black jacket, bracelet, and what else?
Pair of black socks, Your Honor.
Any objection to that?
No objection.
The contents of that packet, which has on the outside of it black jacket, bracelet, and black socks, is now in evidence as 131.
All right, this is very important, all these logistics in establishing the chain of custody. You can see that, again, he's taking the bag to the witness. He has to ask the witness, do you recognize this? What is it? Oh, this is the bag that was closed and marked as Exhibit 1. He, the attorney, then has to show it to defense, either before he's done this or right after, because he wants to show the court that the defense has seen it, has no objections, again, making a good record, an establishing chain of custody and getting what's in that bag into evidence, which is the ultimate goal. Now, the other thing the judge will decide is whether or not during deliberations the jury will get to actually see what's in those bags. Most likely, because they cannot handle what's in the bags, they would be brought back into the courtroom, the items would be removed and shown to them with someone properly gloved that can touch the exhibits. The exhibits have to be preserved for appellate purposes. Now, here he goes, and you're going to see he should show that to defense. He did it right there. Now he is walking up to the witness again to identify the bag. Let's go back in.
Yes, I do.
What's inside that bag, sir?
A pair of green boots recovered from bag number 1.
And, sir, what is the outside of the bag say?
The outside of the bag reads green boots, bag number 1, with my initials, my trainee's initials, and the date.
The Commonwealth will proceed to have this marked as the next exhibit.
The bag with the green boots is now in evidence as Exhibit 133.
Sir, you recognize this bag?
Yes, I do.
What is that, sir?
This is a brown paper bag containing a bracelet.
Can you open the bag and confirm the bracelets inside?
Yes, there's a bracelet inside.
Commonwealth will seek to have this marked as the next exhibit, Your Honor.
Any objection? The bracelet is now in evidence in its bag as 134.
Sir, I'm handing you this first bag. Can I ask if you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
What is that, sir?
This is a bag marked white towel number 1 from bag number 2 at the PBD collection facility.
And that's one of the 2 white towels you bagged up that night and took back to the crime lab?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you open it and make sure the towel's inside?
Yes, it's inside.
The Commonwealth will seek to have this bag and the white towel marked as the next exhibit, Your Honor. No objection.
White towel number 1 from bag 2 is now in evidence as Exhibit 135.
I'm handing you another bag, sir.
This bag is marked white towel number 2.
And does that look like the second bag for a white towel that you bagged that night?
Yes, that's correct.
Could you open it and confirm the towel's inside?
Yes, it's inside.
The Commonwealth will seek to have this marked as the next video.
Any objection? The white towel number 2 from bag number 2 is now in evidence as 136. Can I see counsel at the side of the bench?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sidebar at the request of the judge. Don't know what she's discussing off the record with the judge, with the parties, but while that happens, we'll take a break. Coming up, we will have more of the Brian Walshe murder trial out of Massachusetts, plus an update out of Georgia, where an ex-pageant queen is standing trial for murder of a young boy. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Disappearance of Anna Walshe.
Her husband now charged with her murder.
All eyes on this accused killer.
The disappearance of Anna Walshe murder trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Tonight on closing arguments, he admitted to lying to police, but will this jury believe he murdered his wife? We're unpacking key testimony in the case against Brian Walshe.
Closing arguments tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
We'll get you back to Massachusetts for the murder trial of defendant Brian Walshe in just a moment. But first, an update on another murder trial that we are following in the state of Georgia. Former beauty queen Trinity Pogue is accused of killing her boyfriend's 18-month-old son, JD. The child's father says he left his son with Pogue in her college dorm room while he went to the store. Now, when he returned, he says JD was unresponsive. He put him on his shoulder, he jumped in the car, he took him to the hospital, where JD later died. Today, JD's father returned to the witness stand, and he recalled JD throwing up on the way to the hospital. Take a listen.
So when you were getting in the car, when you were in the car, he threw up on you. Did anybody ask you to take the jacket so they could test to see if the child threw up on your jacket?
No.
If they had, would you have turned it over to them?
Yes, I still have it also.
Where is it?
At my house.
Has it ever been cleaned?
No.
Why?
That's the last thing I got to remember of.
Of course, we will continue to bring you any updates throughout the day in that trial. You can also stream it live on courttv.com and our YouTube channel. Right now, back to the disappearance of Anna Walshe murder trial in Massachusetts. The defendant, Brian Walshe, accused of killing and dismembering her body. She disappeared on New Year's Day in 2023, but her body has never been found. Let's go back inside the courtroom now. On the stand, we're watching as the evidence is being presented to the DNA analyst who's testifying to it. Let's go back.
I'm producing another bag to you. I'm going to ask you to recognize that.
Yes, I do.
And what is that bag, sir?
This bag contains a white bathrobe with red-brown stains that I recovered from bag number 3.
Could you open that bag and confirm that the bathrobe inside?
Yes, it is.
The phone also seems to have the bag with the bathrobe marked as the next exhibit.
Any objection?
Objection.
The bathrobe from bag number 3 is now in evidence as Exhibit 137.
And that's Exhibit 137.
Sir, what's this bag that I'm handing you?
This is a bag of the dark gray slippers with red-brown stains and trace materials.
Could you open the bag and confirm the slippers are inside?
Yes, they are.
Commonwealth seems to have the bag with the dark gray slippers marked as the next exhibit. No objection.
That's also from bag number 3, or is that?
This would be from bag number
That's
4.
bag 4.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. The dark gray slippers from bag number 4 are now in evidence as 138.
Mr. Gould? Recognize that bag?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
This bag contains the leather strap watch from bag number 4.
And could you open and confirm the watch inside?
Yes, it is.
The Commonwealth would seek to have the next bag as the watch from bag number 4 as the next exhibit.
Any objection?
No objection.
The leather strap watch from bag 4 is now in evidence as 139.
And that's Exhibit 139.
So you recognize that bag?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
This is a bag containing apparent hairs with red-brown stains from bag number 4.
Could you open the bag and confirm that the items inside?
This one's still sealed.
Oh, we didn't get them all?
Yeah, I can't quite get it all. I need new gloves as well.
So your gloves have opened. For the record, I brought you a new set. So and why don't I take yours?
Thank you.
Good?
Good.
All right.
Thank you. Yes, they're inside.
The Commonwealth would seek to have the next bag with apparent hairs with red-brown stain marked as the next exhibit, Your Honor.
No
Any objection?
No objection.
The hair from bag number 4 is in evidence as 140.
And that's Exhibit 140.
Sir, do you recognize this bag?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
This is a pair of slippers with red-brown stains from bag number 4.
So those are the light gray slippers?
That's correct.
Can you open the slippers in your bag?
Yes, they are.
Commonwealth and seek to have the next bag marked as Exhibit 141, pair of slippers from bag number 4.
No objection.
Thank you. The bags, light gray slippers from bag number 4 are now in evidence as Exhibit 141.
The other thing I want to mention on this, don't think that both sides have not already seen what's in these bags. It would be unfair if the defense had never seen these, never had an opportunity to look at chain of custody prior to. That would all be handled in discovery. So while the handling of them has to be done correctly, I promise you, the defense team has already seen what's in each of these bags prior to walking inside the courtroom.
Okay. The sponge from bag number 4 is now in evidence as Exhibit 142.
The mark Exhibit 142.
Sir, do you recognize that bag?
Yes, I do.
What is that bag?
This is a bag containing the Tyvek suit recovered from bag number 6.
Could you open and confirm the Tyvek suits inside?
Yes, it is.
The Commonwealth would seek to have this next bag, Your Honor, marked as next exhibit, Tyvek suit from bag number 6.
No objection.
Thank you. Now in evidence as 143 is the Tyvek suit from bag 6.
The mark Exhibit 143.
Mr. Gould? Do you recognize that bag?
Yes, I do.
What is that, sir?
This bag contains the hand towel with red-brown stains from bag number 6.
Can you open and confirm it's inside?
It is.
The Commonwealth will seek to mark this as the next exhibit, Your Honor, which is hand towel with red brown stains from bag number 6.
Any objection?
No objection.
And towel from bag 6 is now in evidence as 144.
The mark Exhibit 144.
Your Honor, may I have a moment?
Yes?
All right, that's going to be the end of the direct examination. Let's bring back in former Deputy Public Defender Philip Dubé. Philip, I want to ask you this specifically because some viewers, I look on social media, have said they just can't buy that sudden death that he's asserting as his defense, and that she was seemingly healthy according to what's come into evidence so far and then just died. I think I could live with that part. I think, yes, it might happen medically, but the thing that disturbs me is knowing that the next thing he did was nudge, nudge. She falls out of bed. He realizes it. He panics and dismembers her body. Those to me don't go together.
No, especially if you thereafter go out and buy, 5 buckets, a hacksaw, a hatchet, a hazmat suit, hammers, shoe guards and mops and all kinds of other cleaning stuff that looks like either you're running a janitorial service or you're running a Molly's maid service, sending people out to clean houses. Now, I will say, to be fair to Mr. Walsh, remember at the time of the homicide, he was still on federal supervised release. And people need to remember that felons, parolees, convicts, probationers, they still have rights. And it could be that he was terrified that because there was a death in his own home and that he could be implicated, he could be held on a revocation of his supervised release and go back to federal prison on a violation. And perhaps in panic mode, he did whatever he could to dispose of the body. It was obviously ill-advised because it looks like he's creating a trail of deceit and certainly of guilt pointing toward him. But that would be about the only thing that I could think of that would drive him to doing it in this fashion. Or maybe he really thought that he could pull off the perfect crime, never thinking that state and local officials would take on the cause of a Serbian immigrant to the United States. And let me tell you, he didn't think through that properly, because look at where he's at now. I don't think he's ever getting out.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at this point. Based on the evidence, the defense will have an opportunity. Do you think in the last 30 seconds that this is a defendant that's going to want to speak, knowing 3 interviews he did with the police, 2 at home, another, he talked and talked and talked and talked. What do you think?
Yes, I do. I think he's going to take the stand. I think the jury's going to need to hear from his mouth that he didn't actually kill her, that he was in panic mode, and who knows, he might even explain his supervised release status, concede that he was in the market of buying and selling Andy Warhol knockoffs, and that he wasn't exactly the pillar of society, but that he is not a killer. Otherwise, he doesn't really have much going for him criminally.
And it'll be interesting to see how he comes off, because he certainly doesn't seem remorseful, upset, apologetic, knowing he's now pled guilty to dismembering her. The other thing is, thank you for pointing out, you're right, when he is on that federal case and he's under supervision, that may have added to his panic. Goodbye, Philip Dubé. Thank you as always for your great expertise. So appreciated. Coming up next, Michael Ayala joining me for more of the Brian Walshe murder trial on Court TV, your front row seat to justice. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ashley Wilcott.
And I'm Michael Ayala. We're both here today giving you your front row seat to justice. Our Court TV cameras are in Massachusetts, where defendant Brian Walshe is standing trial accused of killing his wife, Anna.
Prosecutors believe she was murdered on New Year's Day in 2023. They say Walshe spent several days trying to conceal her death before she was ultimately reported missing by her employer. Her body has never been found.
Now, Walshe has pleaded guilty to disposing Anna's body and misleading police. He did not, however, admit to her murder. He instead claims that Anna died a sudden death.
On the stand right now as a DNA analyst, he is now facing cross-examination by the defense.
Mr. Gould, do you have a comment?
Mr. Gould's fine.
So, you told us as you began your testimony that when you went to the scene of the where all the trash and everything was, that people were collecting bags. At one point, you had to then take out some of the evidence and put it on the paper to quote, preserve the integrity of the evidence.
Yes.
And when we talk about preserve the integrity of the evidence, what we're trying to do is what all of you are trying to do is make sure that you keep it in the same condition that it was in when you found it, correct?
Exactly, yes.
Now, do you know anything about a trash compactor that was taken to that area before you arrived?
I don't know any specifics about a trash compactor, no.
So can you tell the jury, if you have any information, that some of this evidence has been introduced that was taken out of a dumpster there, that it had first been in a compactor and then transferred to the dumpster, or you just don't know?
I do not know.
When you talk about the integrity of the evidence, it also includes trying to preserve the fact, as best you can, of how a particular item that was stained is not stained by another item. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say, yes.
So when you're handling this evidence that you're collecting, you're really taking care not to have one item touch another item, because you don't want a transfer between biological evidence between item 1 and item 2, correct?
Correct, to the best of my ability, yes.
Sure. And in this case, and in the collection of this evidence, it's fair to say, isn't it, Mr. Gould, that you have no way of knowing before you were able to begin your examination of these items at the scene how they had come into contact with each other, either within a bag or just being pulled out by people before you arrived.
Before I arrived, correct.
And there is such a thing in your expertise in forensics that includes characterization of transfer of biological evidence, correct?
That is within the realm of our responsibilities, yes.
And what that simply means is that one item that has some either biological evidence or something else, if it comes into contact with another item, it can transfer that to the other item. So item A that may have had a red-brown stain on it might transfer some of that red-brown stain to item B, whereas before, item B never had a red-brown stain.
That's correct. And the term we would use for that is called low cards exchange principle.
And that would include, for instance, if you were looking at a pair of slippers like we have in this case, and you see in one of the photographs that there looks to be a pair of hairs attached to the slippers, it could very well be that those hairs that are seen attached to the slipper, they could have transferred to that slipper because they were already in the bag or they came into contact with something else.
Absolutely, yes.
And so it's fair to say then that when you're out there very careful, and with all the training and experience you have, there's no way for you to be able to tell a jury, with regards to this specific case, how exactly some of this red-brown stain or biological evidence actually came to be on any piece of evidence.
Correct. I cannot say the manner of deposition. I can only confirm its presence.
And so it's fair to say, isn't it, that there could very well be some of this evidence that now, when you look upon it, it has a red-brown stain on it. That red-brown stain may not have been on that piece of evidence when it was, in fact, initially placed into, for example, a black bag.
That's possible, yes.
In the photographs that were introduced of the scene where you went with all that trash and garbage, it's fair to say that a lot of that trash and garbage had absolutely nothing to do with this case.
Correct.
How did you differentiate at the scene what applied to this case and what didn't apply to this case?
Mainly once the discovery was made of red-brown stains on items, I was looking for any items of interest that might be in with those bags that have those red-brown stains on them as well, to try to establish any potential biological connections with the items in those bags.
And we saw a lot of photographs, but some of the photographs appeared to have some of the items that were eventually taken into custody by you and given a lens number, like you described for the jury. Some of those items, when they were first taken out of the bags, it looks to me like they were placed directly onto the floor of that warehouse.
Yes, they do.
And the floor of the warehouse actually looks somewhat damp in the photographs.
It does, yes.
And it was in fact damp.
I can't recall exactly the conditions, but it is the floor of the facility, yes.
And so it's fair to say that a lot of terrible question, I apologize. It's fair to say that you have no idea what was originally on the floor of that warehouse before you arrived.
Correct.
You just know that it had the appearance, it may have been damp, but you don't know what caused the damage.
That's correct.
And then these items were placed on that. Items, like for instance, the items have been admitted into evidence here, and they could have been caused to be dampened by what was on the floor of that warehouse.
That's possible, yes.
And then what happened was, once again, in your very earnest desire to preserve the integrity of the evidence, you then took a lot of this physical pieces of evidence and you placed them on, and we call it, what do we call it, paper?
Yes, we would refer to the white parchment paper, typically in the lab as bench paper.
Bench paper. And that's what we see in the photographs.
Yes.
And then, after you collected these items, you then transported them or caused them to be transported to the lab at the Mass State Police?
Yes.
And did you, I thought I heard you testify that you had them transported to various parts of the lab?
The evidence, I believe what I had said was that the evidence will eventually travel to its respective facility where it needs to be stored. But I did submit at one laboratory with all the items.
You did?
Yes.
Okay. And after you transported the items to the lab, did you have any further, did you do any further work on these items?
No, I did not.
Well, thank you, sir.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Witness may step down. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes?
All right, Michael, I'm not surprised that was the end of cross-examination, no redirect. Really, on cross, I think they did all they could to say that, for instance, the transfer of the stains could be caused from one item to the other. Those hairs on the slippers could have been transferred from somewhere else, trying to find some reasonable doubt.
Yeah, the defense is doing what it can. I think they've done a decent job on all the cross-examinations. Clearly skilled attorneys there representing Brian Walshe. But again, I'm not sure how much difference it makes, right? Because we know that he said she was in the house. He admits to cutting her up and doing those things. That's not the issue here. The issue is to get this jury to believe why he did it. That he wanted to protect the kids, or was he covering up a murder?
Right. Was he covering up a murder? Did he actually kill her? He denies it. We'll see what the jury decides.